Misunderstandings are very common between people from different cultures, and I still face it sometimes while giving feedbacks to my team belonging to different cultures and different backgrounds. When I try to give them feedback, I sometimes try to use the verbiage which are normally used in the English language, but the other person whose primary language or a mother language is not English, that person sometimes take it in the other way, and that person feels that I'm trying to insult him, or maybe I'm trying to make him feel low, but that's not the case.
Welcome to the Hired Hub podcast, your ultimate guide to mastering the complexities of remote work and pushing your career forward.
Whether you're tuning in from the busy streets of Latin America or any corner of the globe, we're here to give you tools and insights to succeed in today's dynamic job market. I'm your host, Gabby Morales.
And I am your co-host, Jess Torres. If you're a recent graduate eager to leave your mark or a seasoned pro looking to redirect your career, you can join us as we explore the endless possibilities of remote work and career growth.
Get ready to unlock your full potential with the Hired Hub podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hired Hub podcast. Today we're talking about remote work challenges versus benefits and people working together from different cultures and languages. We're excited to have our guest today, Geetansh from Superior Biz Solutions. He will be answering some important questions in these areas. But before we get started, Jess, how are you today?
Hey, Gabby, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking. I'm so excited to be here again. And I know today's episode will be just amazing. We also wanted to tell you that in today's interactive session, we asked you guys on LinkedIn, if you are transitioning to remote work or if you're already in one, which would you find the most relevant? We asked you 4 of them. One was dedicated workspace. The second one, regular work hours. The third one, effective communication. And the fourth one, setting clear goals and priorities. And this was really interesting because it was really pure. Like we can say we didn't have a lot of difference between each vote. We had 233 people voting. The fewer votes with 24 and with 20% was with 20% regular work hours and with 24% dedicated workspace. So it's clear that for a smooth transition to remote work, it's really important focusing on clear goals and good communication. It's crucial. What do you think, Gabby, about this poll?
Yeah, I feel like the results really just reflect how everything is just as important.
Yes.
You shouldn't be choosing one or the other or sacrificing one or the other. Like, I think effective communication and setting clear goals and priorities are always a priority, like are always essential in your workspace. But when you're working remote, you may not have the same tools or commodities that you would have in a physical workspace where, you know, the employer is obliged to provide those benefits for you, like a dedicated workspace and give you regular working hours. Like you have to provide that for yourself. So maybe I feel like maybe that's something that people are not like seeing as important, but it is very important when you're transitioning into the remote workspace. I think that these results really just reflect how important everything is. I'm also very happy by the amount of people that are voting. Like we've been getting a lot of votes recently, like they're increasing. Thank you guys for voting. Just keep in mind, we're going to keep posting on LinkedIn just to see what your thoughts are on certain matters that we're handling. This is our way of making you as part of our show. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, Gabby, now that we have some insights about these topics, could you please introduce us to your guests?
Sure. We want to introduce you to Geetansh Madhok, the Performance Manager Director at Superior Biz Solutions. Geetansh oversees various projects and activities, serving as a crucial link between clients and employees. His expertise lies in designing strategies, conducting evaluations, and implementing training programs to drive organizational performance. With years of experience in the field, Geetansh has witnessed the evolution of performance and project management practices and has invaluable insights. And since today we are talking about the pros and cons of working from home who better to join us than Geetansh, who's remotely handling the internal staff and the company's major clients in a growing business model. Join us as we explore Geetansh's insights into effective performance management. Welcome, Geetansh. How are you?
Hey, Gabby. Hey, Jess. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. And really happy to be a part of this podcast. As by now, you guys already know my name, Geetansh. I'm 34 from central part of India. I've been working in project and performance management field since over 8 to 9 years now, and especially associated with Superbus Solutions since almost 3 years now. I mean, it has been a great journey so far. I've handled several types of clients from different locations, religions, and business backgrounds. I mean, I started years back as a regular agent, handling some back-end part of the projects. And after these many years, I have come to a platform where I handle team of multiple developers, designers, data entry operators, and whatnot. Rest, I guess you have already summarized my current profile.
Great. Well, Geetansh, we're so happy to have you here. And we want to know what has been the biggest challenge that you've faced over like working remotely. And just tell us, how do you overcome these distractions and to stay focused while you really work from home?
Honestly, it's a very interesting and hyped question nowadays among young talent starting their professional career, and in fact, I would say same for the experienced professionals. Before we get to the actual answer for this question that you asked, it's really important that we highlight where it all started.
Yes.
After having a year of work experience in different line of businesses, I or nobody ever thought of working from home until the COVID-19 pandemic came. And it's not that I'm referring to an individual employee, but also as an employer. Like most of the companies never thought that they will be able to operate remotely to run their operations. It's only after COVID they realized that this can be done with ease and it will save a lot of administration, infrastructure, and overall business running cost. But that definitely came with a lot of challenges, pros and cons, especially for the newcomers graduating from colleges who never went to the office building or seen the corporate culture, you know? So yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of things to discuss about this topic, but coming back to the question about the biggest challenge while working remotely. So there are a lot of challenges, but talking about some specific ones, like the major ones are like normally people face the connectivity and technical challenges while they're working from home. Like it makes individuals vulnerable to technical difficulties like internet connectivity or software glitches or hardware malfunctions. If being in the office premises, if you face any technical challenge, you have a dedicated ID team taking care of those things. And you might just get a replacement hardware or whatever the issue is related to. But if you're working from home, you need to manage on your own. The second biggest challenge I feel is maintaining a work-life balance. Like remote work has impacted work-life balance a lot. Earlier, we used to work in a specific time interval when we used to go to the offices. Once we used to come back home, mostly we never had to get bothered about work much. And we could spend more time with our families, take out personal time for ourselves. But now with work from home, we are often led to overworking, or it's difficult. Yeah, and it's difficult switching off from the work mode mentally. You know, even if the work timings are over, we are always, somewhere involved that, oh my God, that's still pending. I need to send a report, or that's pending, and blah blah blah. So that's one thing. And then of course, communication between the team members. Like this industry has evolved a lot during past 2 3 years. I remember initially when we started working remotely, there were not many options for video or remote technologies. Either they were paid or they were free version with the limited features, or maybe some of other challenges. I remember Skype. It was always mastered in VoIP calling industry, and softwares like TeamViewer were used to remote sessions. They're still used, but since COVID, there are a lot of new and better technologies come into this industry, where we can say they are like one-stop shop and revolutionized this industry. Of course, Zoom is one of them that we regularly use from home. Talking about more concerns and issues that we face, and personally as a human being, is like feeling isolated or disconnected, like not being social. That's like really a big thing for like a human mental status, I think. Honestly, not now I'm used to it working from home as it's been more than 3 years, but definitely it was a trauma once upon a time. I mean, I used to meet my colleagues and work friends at work floor, interact daily face to face, or maybe at the cafeteria, eat together, talk about our lives, maybe like official conversation. But you meet new people, they're always a good interaction, a human being interaction, rather than a 27 inches LED screen, you're meeting somebody. So of course, even today, I do sometimes miss going to the office, but as it's said, there's always pros and cons of every side. So yeah, we did save the travel time by not going to the office. But yeah.
How do you, and just related to those things that you say that are issues, like the challenges, how do you overcome them? Like, for example, for you specifically, how did you overcome those issues of connectivity, technology, maintaining the work-life balance, and collaborating with your teams, and how did you do that?
Okay, good question. So the first thing every work from home employee should do is they should first establish a dedicated workspace, I believe. When I started working from home, I used to sometimes sit in my bedroom, sometimes living room, sometimes dining table. In fact, I worked from my kitchen as well. I remember, so
Yeah.
I was at all the places every time. So, and all the times, either my family members are passing by, making sounds, or pets. I have pets, so my pets are sitting beside me, or crazy things happening around. And
Yeah, I think that happens to most of us.
exactly. And trust me, it's nobody's fault. It's their house too. And so then slowly I created my workspace. I got a new work desk. I found one corner of the house where I can set up everything. A proper work setup, including a good mic, a good system, a good LED screen, everything, a good working chair and the desk. I guess that's the most important thing, you know? So I got everything set up, and now after this much time and these many years, I can say that yeah, I am having a proper setup with no interruption of family or anybody. The other thing I would say is setting up the boundaries with your working hours. So although it's a very subjective topic, yeah, it's a very subjective topic because it depends on the profile and your work responsibilities, but it's always better to fix your working hours and set a certain boundaries with your employer, where an employee should not feel overburdened with the work. Sometimes, I guess it does become difficult to manage working hours in case of work from home, but one must try to, as much as possible, like keep yourself and your employer on the common grounds. I guess that's very important. And I guess what else? Like these are the basic things I believe a person should definitely do. Breaks. Personally, I used to exhaust myself initially a lot when I started work from home. I just kept on working for hours and hours, like 5 hours straight, 7 hours straight. Initially, it was like good. I was energetic. I was feeling great, but slowly it came down. I felt like, no, this is not.
It burns out. Yeah.
So to all the listeners, especially who are new to the work from home industry and they are recently starting this profession, I believe it's a great tip for them that take short breaks. I mean, every 30 minutes, 1 hour, you should take a 5 or 10 minutes break, just relax, stretch your body, talk to your family around just for 5 minutes, just go up. And maybe if you do that regularly after every 30 minutes or 1 hour, you won't feel burned out. And maybe after 2, 3 hours, you can take a long break, like 30 minutes or an hour break. You can do that. So I guess that's something I can definitely suggest.
Amazing. So you've pinned down having the workspace, you've pinned down having the modality to really stay on top of your work. I want to ask you, Geetansh, like working from home sometimes can be challenging, as we've mentioned. What's your preferred method for staying motivated and productive in a remote work environment?
First and the most important thing is to work in your area of interest. Like, irrespective of whatever you do, if the work you are doing is not what you want to do, you won't be motivated. You might push yourself. Yeah, I mean, you might push yourself for a while, but in the end, I mean, it will come down. You will fall someday. And that's going to come very soon. And if you're working around in your interest, then there are some set of things that can still be done to motivate yourself. Like, you need to have your priorities set, like clear priorities and clear goals. Like, for an example, if I talk about priorities, as much as work, family is the important factor in your life. One should always be excited to meet their families over the table of dinner, over lunch, after finishing the work. Like, you should have done after coming, I mean, like the same way you do when you go to the office in person and come back home in the evening and meet your family, spend the time with your family, the same ways you should do it while you're working from home. I mean, it shouldn't be like, oh, I was home from like past 8 hours already and the families were around me, so why to meet them specially now? You should not lose that interest. You should always be excited to stay with your family like you're going to the office and coming back home. And by saying setting the clear goals, I mean, like, it's important to stay up to date with the tasks and settings, like clear goals. Like, you should not have a pile of work pending for tomorrow. Because if I talk about myself, initially when I started working from home, I was like, let's say if I have 10 things to do, and if I'm done with 8 things, I always just say, oh, it's just 2 of them pending. I'll do it tomorrow. But then tomorrow, it's not 10, it's 12 actually now, 10 plus 2. So slowly, when the work start getting piled on, you start getting demotivated. It starts feeling, burden
Yeah.
on you. So I guess you should have your goal clear, that complete a job before end of the day, and every day you should start fresh. And as I already mentioned, that you should always take your breaks to keep yourself productive and energetic. Take proper breaks, and you should meet your team every now and then virtually. That's really important. Like, if you go to the office physically and we have a team meetings in a meeting room, you should do the same thing in a virtual work environment. You should meet the team separately on a Zoom session or whatever tool you're using, and yeah. And if you're a junior employee, or even if you're a senior employee and you are unaware of something or you need help with, take support from your mentors, from your colleagues. It's important.
Amazing. I like what you mentioned at the beginning about the priorities. We've asked this question to other guests and they always focus it on the part of work priorities. And of course, that's important, but you take it beyond and you also talk about having priorities outside of your work or beyond your work. And I feel like that is so important. Like, when you're able to give work the priority that it has, which means that it shouldn't be your top priority, I think that even that gives you the advantage of being more productive once you are in the mindset of working, because it really gives you the ability of focusing in the time when you're doing it. So I feel like that's amazing from that end.
Okay, now that we talked about all of this, we want to talk about our second topic, which is about people working together from different cultures and languages. And we know you're from India and you're also a performance management director, and you've been working with a lot of different people. We want to know, what are the main challenges faced when working in multicultural team, especially, or from your experience, like how has been working with people from different countries and everything?
Right. Yes, multicultural and multilingual, these are two different things, and definitely both of them itself are a very big challenges. But like, let's say if I talk about the cultural difference, honestly, due to the globalization, I guess these challenges are subsiding day by day. But of course, we cannot ignore the fact that still there are a lot of challenges we always face every now and then while working with people from different cultures. I mean, for an example, when I started working with Superbus Solution, I got to know that most of our clients, or there are a lot of clients who are Jewish, from the Jewish background. And honestly, like, of course, since then I have learned a lot about their culture. And I guess that's the best part about working in a multicultural environment. You get to learn about different cultures. It may sometimes hurt some other person's feeling, as we might think it as a casual way, being from a different culture, but the other person may not. But that's something we all need to be very careful about. Like, learning is another aspect, but learning from experience is another aspect, I mean. But learning initially, before, like when you know that you're going to meet somebody who's from a different culture, it's always good that a person should do some research on their own about the culture, so that we are not hurting somebody's feelings, or there are different nuances of every culture, which it's nobody's fault actually, but end of the day, we need to take care of those things. And talking about the communication barrier, I mean, same goes with the languages. I personally know English, Hindi, and some regional languages of India, which is, of course, my mother tongue as well. But when I started working with people from Latin America, I was overwhelmed with the Spanish accent and the little nuances that every language has, of course. So professionally, it sometimes becomes difficult to, make the other person understand what you're trying to express, especially when your job is to manage clients and employees who belong to different culture and share different languages. It takes a lot of patience to express your feelings. I do encounter a situation a lot of times when I'm trying to express something in English, because English is the common language we all share here at the work premise. But when I'm trying to explain somebody or express myself in English, but the other person from Latin America or maybe from some other part of the world sharing some other language might think, oh my God,
It's
what he's
really
talking
common.
about.
It's more common than we think.
Yeah, right. So initially it was a big deal for me. Now I'm starting to gel up with people speaking Spanish or even French. But yeah, it's still a challenge, I'm sure.
Are you learning from those
Honestly
languages?
speaking, I recently started a Spanish course, I guess a month back, and I'm starting to, yeah, because I know that I'm dealing with most of my team members are from Latin America, and they all speak Spanish. So I want to know if they are talking bad about me behind my back, you know? So yeah, jokes apart, but yeah, I'm trying to learn Spanish now for sure.
Awesome.
Okay, and apart from the cultural and the language barriers, of course, there is one major difference that we all share, especially working from different countries, is the time zone difference. As you know that I'm from India, and most of my team members are either in the America, like they share the Eastern time, like New York time, or maybe from Colombia, or maybe from Latin America. Like we all are in different time zones, and
How many hours are you ahead?
it's almost 9 to 10 hours I'm ahead. So it's a huge difference. I mean, when my team starts working, it's almost, or not almost, it's actually evening at my end. So definitely, for some of them, including me, and especially for the people coming new to this industry, working for overseas clients, so it becomes a little challenging working late hours, and and especially when there are some important meetings coming up. So I would highly appreciate and recommend people coming to this environment of working for different clients in different time zones, that they should first make sure that they are ready to accept these change of time zones. That's really important, because sometimes it does impact their personal life as well. Of course, if you work till 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., somewhere it's impacting your personal life. It may impact your personal life. So you should be ready for that. That's really important.
Definitely. For me, like part of my experience of working in multicultural workspaces, I am Latin American. And I do work with a lot of Latin American people, but from different countries. And for me, it's the stereotyping that even though we're Latin American, like we're still different cultures within. So
Right.
it's like the stereotyping of the different cultures. I think that sometimes creates like maybe difficulty in creating rapport, like just bonding, because some cultures are a little bit more close within them, and they have a harder time maybe like intertwining with people from different cultures, or they don't understand the jargon or
Right.
the accents. So that sometimes would be like a challenge for me. I know that there are people that also, and it depends really on the workspace. I think like you said earlier, the globalization is really subsiding. It's really eliminating that gap or that lack of knowledge about different cultures. But I do know that still nowadays we experience lack of inclusivity in some workspaces where it's really hard to adapt to people from different cultures or even like learn how to respect our differences. I feel like our differences is actually what makes us stronger. The fact that you're able to learn so many different things about the people that you work with, like not only your team members, but your clients. Like I feel like in my workspace, I've learned so much from the different cultures I've been able to know. And it's actually given me that opportunity to travel without traveling because
True.
I can say I have friends in different countries that really just teach me so much about their culture and really like the positive side of what they have to offer. So more than being a challenge, I also see like it's a benefit. Communication barriers also, I've seen it like being a challenge at sometimes because like you say, sometimes we have to communicate in English, which is the common language. And the way that people learn English is very different. And actually how advanced or proficient they are in it actually can create barriers there because a lot of people, like maybe they have more of a technical knowledge, like a technical proficiency in English. And then there's people that are already using jargon and you have clients that are talking to you like in times two speed.
True.
They're just like talking so fast and they have this jargon and they have these accents and sometimes it's really hard to understand them. So that also happens with the team members. That can be a challenge too. But I think that more than being overwhelmed by it, you have to just submerge yourself in it and you'll see that the more you do it, the more you talk English, the more that you expose yourself to that language, the better you get and the easier it gets with time.
Of course.
Also, I think it depends on how the person was raised in a way like, hey, you can be more sensitive or less sensitive depending on the cross-cultural like growing up. How did you grow up? How did they teach you how to be? Like, how is your communication skills? Where did you learn this from? Like, how are your standards of working? That also affects a lot because I can be working with someone from Colombia still, but we can be totally different and it's still a challenge. But it's really good because you are still going to learn from different
100%.
people.
Like as Gabby said, more than a challenge, I look this thing as an opportunity, like learning new cultures, learning new languages about new countries and all the nuances of different cultures.
Definitely. Geetansh, what are some misunderstandings that arise due to cultural differences in remote teams? And in your experience, how can they be addressed?
As I mentioned earlier, like language itself is a biggest thing which can create a misunderstanding, the different nuances of each and every language and culture. And it has happened to me in the past as well. And strangely, it was in India when I was a part of one of the organizations here in India. And I'm not sure if you guys know, but India itself is a very diverse country. Like you have so many cultures and so many languages in India. So if I may discuss one of the instances that really happened with me, I was speaking to one of my colleagues, and I guess it was me talking in a way of having fun with one of my colleagues, but I mean, I don't know if I should share exactly, but of course, but the other person took it. Yeah, the other person took it offended because that person belonged to a different culture, speaks different language, and I didn't realize it, to be very honest, because if I talk about myself, I was just having fun with that person. So But yeah, that person took it offended, and that person, kind of complained against me that, I'm trying to be, either I'm trying to be stereotype or I'm trying to be, insultive against that person. But that was not the case. So I literally had to apologize, although that was my intentions were not to hurt anybody. So it's the same case. Misunderstandings are very common between people from different cultures, and I still face it sometimes while giving feedbacks to my team belonging to different cultures and different backgrounds. When I try to give them feedback, I sometimes try to use the language or the verbiage which are normally used in the English language, but the other person whose primary language or a mother language is not English, that person sometimes take it in the other way, and that person feels that I'm trying to insult him, or maybe I'm trying to make him feel low. But that's not the case. So a person should be very delicate and very, proactive in understanding things. It works both sides, of one giving a feedback and the one who is taking a feedback. It's not just one person should be attentive or precautious.
Yeah.
Both the people should be precautious enough and understand. But I guess with time, things mellows down, because initially I was new to the system, but now my team is old. I'm pretty old to the system. I have learned different ways of how Latin Americans deal. They have learned how an Indian speaking in English deals, So yeah, I guess it goes both ways, but language and culture, these are the two important things you should focus on and you should learn.
And I think what you said, it's really important that with the time you'll get used to it. I think establishing norms or guidelines for a communication, it's really important. It's like setting clear goals in the communication, right? Like, I'm going to say this and this and this, and this means this. I don't want you to misinterpret it. And just being sensitive, like knowing what I say, if just acknowledging if the other person is going to understand it the same way as I'm going to, like clarifying this, any expectations regarding, a communication or just getting feedback. It's like, hey, I did this. What do you think about this? Do you think, is there a better way of me doing it or saying it? Just that communication, it's really important. Just, to enhance any collaboration and productivity.
You know what I also liked about what you mentioned, the part about acceptance and it having to come both ways. Like, it comes from both ways. It's bilateral, because it could be seen, like, given, like you mentioned, that you are maybe one of few Indians working in mostly a Latin American workspace, like with a lot of Latin American people. They might say, or they might think, okay, you have to accept the way that we do things. But it has to go both ways. Like, acceptance and tolerance has to go both ways. And that's something that should be encouraged in the workspace by employers, by the system itself. It should promote tolerance, cultural tolerance, both ways. Not because you are a minority in this case, because you are maybe the only person that's come from that part of the hemisphere. It doesn't mean that you have to adapt to whatever dynamic the rest are doing. It always has to come to a middle point where you have to meet midway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so how do you approach this conflict resolution? Can you talk about any experience you had where it come a conflict, or how did you resolve it in a multicultural work environment?
I guess rapport building is very important. Like, you need to build a rapport with your team. Initially, it's not just the culture, even if you belong to the same culture, and when there are new people coming in the team, and when you have a new boss or when you have a new colleague, so people try to dominate the other person, and I guess that's the biggest red flag. Nobody should try and dominate their colleague, be it you are superior or you are junior, it doesn't really matter. So I personally have never adapted a culture of superior or junior or senior. No, I don't do that. Even when I interact with my team, although they all report to me, but I don't show off like I'm your boss. That's like a big no for any managers who is listening to this podcast or anybody. If you are a boss, don't behave like one. You need to be a friend to your team. That's really important. And so initially your team might try to dominate you and behave like, oh, I'm not going to listen to you. You are a newcomer and blah, blah, blah. But when you try to be a friend with your team and when you try to behave properly and try to support your team with time, I believe things go back to normal. Things just get normal. Everything goes great. And I have personally experienced that with a lot of my colleagues in different projects that I handle with different cultures, that just be a friend. But of course, a friend doesn't mean that you cross the boundary of professionalism. Of course not. There has to be a boundary of professionalism. And within that boundaries, you can be a friend to your colleague and get things done and do things for them. That's really important.
Yeah. So definitely, I feel like more than like being a friend, because like you say that, I feel like that's like the analogy that most relates. But when you're a friend, actually, what are you doing? You're trying to listen actively and you're trying to really understand where the other one is coming from. You're trying to be empathetic. So I think that that is a skill. And I'd say it's definitely a skill because you can nourish that and you can polish that with time. If you feel like it's not something that it's natural to you, it's something that can be learned. But definitely that's a way to manage that, to be empathetic, to always come from a place where you know, or you want to expect that people are not doing things with ill intention, but actually are trying to get their job done. And that's maybe the way that they know how to do things, but there are always better ways to do things. And when you talked about really the boss and like the manager, like the supervisor and supervisee situation, like you say, I think that the worst thing that you can do is actually
behave like a boss.
Show off your boss status, because really what you want to do there is establish leadership.
Sure.
And you don't do that by telling someone, I'm your boss, you have to follow my instructions. You do that by providing guidance, by being empathetic, and by actually teaching. And that's not what a boss does. That's what a leader does. So that's a clear difference. And I feel like when you're working in multicultural work environments, that's something that you always have to lead with empathy and finding common ground. Because even though there are many things that make us different, there are many more that align, that really just unite us, that makes us very similar. And we have to really, every time that we can, try to play on that more than on the differences, because you can always get better results when you're empathetic, and specifically with people that maybe are coming from very different backgrounds than you.
Right.
And you said it, like, we're also working for the same goal. It's like we're a team. It would be really chaotic if we focus just on what makes us different. But instead of just what you said, finding a common ground and meeting in the middle, it's really important.
Definitely. Geetansh, Jess, unfortunately, we are reaching the end of our episode. I think that this is something that we could always expand more on. So Geetansh, thank you for being with us today. I hope that you can join us soon in another episode where we can talk about, we can even go deeper into multicultural differences, or we can even talk about more topics related to your field of specialty. Thank you very much for being with us today. We had such a great time, and we talked about the challenges and benefits of working remotely. Also about working in a multicultural team, language barriers and cultural differences, and how can these cause misunderstandings, but also how can we come to a resolution with them? How can we really find common ground with everything? Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to sticking to the end. We want to invite you to keep listening to our podcasts. We launch every Tuesday a new episode. So thank you, and keep participating in our weekly LinkedIn posts. Remember, this is Gabby Morales.
And this is Jess Torres. Just follow us on our social media in LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
That wraps another episode of the Hired Hub podcast. We hope you found today's discussion empowering and insightful. Remember, success in the world of remote work is within your reach, and we're here to support you every step of the way.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice and engaging conversations. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to help us reach more people who can benefit from the Hired Hub podcast.